Hello students, continuing the discussion on the model number 3. So we have discussed a part in that one. So that is a heat treatment of steel. So where we have discussed various types of heat treatment which we carry out in order to change the properties of a steel. So moving on with the discussion. So we are here with the last part in the model number 3. So where we will discuss the properties of ferrous material and its alloys and non-ferrous materials and its alloys. So in this section we are going to talk about the ferrous materials and its alloys. So what are the properties and the applications and the properties which make them to apply in the real things. So we are going to have in this module. Okay. So the property of the cast iron, so which normally we get, okay, and where exactly we are going to apply that one. So we'll see now here as the cast iron are having the carbon percentage will be varying from 2 to 4.5 percentage, and the silicon will be varying from 1 to 3 percentage. Okay, there will be a small amounts of sulfur, manganese, and phosphorus. Okay, the properties will be they are very strong. Okay, but they are brittle in nature, so very difficult to machine those things. Okay, so admirably machinability is a little bit less, and a relatively low melting point, and they are having a wear resistance and possess a good fluidity. Okay, so because of this good fluidity, so they are mainly used in a casting. Okay, so they flow very easily, okay, when they are in a molten state and all. So only the name is a cast iron. Okay, because of their good fluidity. Okay, so the main purpose they are applied is for a casting. Okay, the main components which are made up of iron, okay, in this category, which are having that much of a what you call carbon percentage, are mainly used in casting products. Okay, because of their good fluidity. So like that, so if you see the various classification in that one. Okay, so we can see here the ferrous materials are classified. Okay, so in the categories as steels and cast iron. Okay, the main classification in the ferrous material, so we are going to take it as the steels and cast iron, and the steels are classified again into a plain carbon steel and a alloy steel. Okay, so normally here in the plain carbon steel, so there is no alloy, extra alloys which are added into that one. But when it comes to the alloy steels, there will be major alloying elements, so which are added into this one. So what are these plain and alloy steels? Already we have given little bit introduction in the module number 2 also, in section of the module number 2. And when it comes to the plain carbon steel, so we have a low, a medium, and a high carbon steel. And when it comes to the alloy steels, so we have a structural steels, tool and die steel, magnetic alloys, and stainless and heat resisting steels. Okay, so what are these types of steels and what are their property and application? So we'll see one by one. And when it comes to the cast iron, okay, as I said, depending upon the structure, okay, or the shape of the uh, free carbon which is present in that one. Okay, so we classify these cast iron into a gray cast iron, white cast iron, okay, and a malleable iron and a SG iron. Means so this gray cast iron is the one basics for the classification of these three. Okay, so by heat treating this gray cast iron, so normally we will end up with the malleable and SG iron. So how exactly we are going to get these types of cast iron? So we'll see one by one with their application. So as we discussed in the previous slide, so the cast iron are classified into grey cast iron, white cast iron, malleable cast iron, and nodular cast iron. So what are these types? So what are the properties and application of these different types? We can see it here. Now, so when we see these four types of a cast iron, so we can see the variation in the carbon percentage and the silicon. So when it comes to the steels, so they are having a least percentage, okay, that is less than 2.1 percentage of a carbon, and the silicon which is present in that one will be varying from 0 to the 2.1 percentage. And if you see the cast iron here, okay, the various types of irons, okay, so we can see the white iron and a gray cast iron and a SG iron. So the silicon percentage will increase with respect to the carbon percentage also. Okay, so the presence of a silicon so will make the good fluidity in the cast iron, so which will be used, okay, or which makes it to suitable for a casting application. Okay, so we'll take up the first classification in the cast iron. That's a gray cast iron. So gray cast iron, as the name itself indicates, so it got a name gray as so when there is a failure of the component which are made up of these type of cast iron, so the surface is looks in the gray color. Okay, so only the name is called as a gray cast iron. So the carbon percentage here so varies from 2.5 to 4 percentage. Okay, and the silicon will range from 1 to 3 percentage, and the rest will be the iron. And when you see the microstructure, so we can observe here the alpha ferrite and the flakes of a graphite. So you can see it here. Okay, the flakes will be like a needle-like structure, so very long flakes, so which will be dispersed in the ferrite structure. Okay, and the properties with respect to these microstructure will be high fluidity, okay, high compression strength, and a low cost. The low cost will be respect to the processing. So high fluidity so will make these categories are suitable for casting products. Okay, and high compression strength are used, okay, or make this material suitable for the application where it requires a very good compression strength. Say for example, the lathe bed, okay, beds of machines. Okay, so where it can withstand the whole weight of the other components. Okay, so the fracture surface, as I said, it looks like a grayish or a blackish in the color. Okay, so only the name we term it as a gray cast iron. So normally the applications will be so the where it requires, okay, or where it demands for high fluidity and a high compression strength. Say for example pressure vessels. Pressure vessels, there they need to have a very good or a high compression strength. Okay, so there we go with the application with the pressure vessels or a valve's edge, okay, or a piston, so where we need to have a smooth movement between the two surfaces, okay, or a clutch plate. Okay, again there is a wear between the two surfaces. Okay, so wear between the rubbing action between the two surfaces. So there, so we go with the cast iron. Means because of these presence of a carbon in the form of a flakes, so these are something like a self lubricating surfaces. Okay, so because of this presence of a graphites as a flakes, so there will be a smooth rubbing action between the two surfaces. Okay, so which provides a solid lubrication between the two surface, which leads to the smooth movement of the rubbing surfaces. Okay, so there we go with the clutch plates. So then the next will be the white cast iron. Okay, so where the composition will be 1.8% to 3.2% of a carbon, and the silicon varies from 0.3 to 1.8%, and the rest will be the iron. So now when you see the microstructure here, the iron carbide, okay, and a pearlite. So in the previous one we have seen it's a alpha ferrite, so then we are going to have a carbon that is graphite flakes, but here the this matrix will be the iron carbide, and there will be a mixture of pearlite with the cementite. Okay, So the properties due to the presence of the cementite, okay, so it is a very hard and brittle, and they are having a high resistance due to this hardness of a material, and so there is no ductility and malleability. So due to this hardness and what you call brittleness due to the presence of this iron carbide, that is Fe3C. So it is not suitable for any machining application. So only it is used where it requires what you call very hard and brittle surfaces. So you can see the microstructure here. So the white structure will be the cementite, and the finger like structure will be the perlite. So here we are going to get a mixture of the iron carbide and a perlite, or we can say the iron carbide is dispersed in the matrix of a perlite. So that is what exactly we term it as a white cast iron. So white cast iron. So the name has come like a, so when we are going to observe the broken surface or the fractured surface, the fractured surface looks white in color. Or so even in the microstructure you can see there are many white patches due to the presence of this iron carbide. Okay, so because of that one, so the name is called as a white cast iron. So the next category in the third one is a malleable cast iron. So these alloys are the almost all the carbon in a free form in the shape of irregular particles. Okay, or we call it as a temper carbon. So this is the heat treated one. This is a heat treated one. So this one is produced by heat treating of a white cast iron. Okay, the white cast iron which you have discussed in the previous one. So where there will be a combined of carbon is present in the combined form as a Fe3C. So now, so this is supplied to the or this is subjected to the tempering. So where the particles are the. So now where we can see when we subject this white cast iron to the tempering process, so these Fe3C, okay, so will be broken into the small irregular shape like structures which are again dispersed in the ferrite matrix. Okay, so we can see the composition will be 1.8% to 3.2% of a carbon, and the silicon will be 0.3 to 1.8%, and the microstructure will be the dark graphite rosoids. Okay, rosoids are something like irregular shape of a carbon which are there in a alpha ferrite matrix. Means the previously where in the white cast iron we had a Fe3C, okay, so which are dispersed in a perlite. So where here, so due to this tempering process, okay, so the free carbon which is coming out of this Fe3C, so will be broken into a small irregular pieces. We call them as a rosites, okay, so which are dispersed in the alpha ferrite matrix. Due to this, the properties will be highly malleable. Okay, so very good machinability, good magnetic property, and a wear resistance. So previously, it was very brittle. Okay, so it was not able to use it for a machining purpose. So now here, so we can see, so due to these tempering process, okay, so there will be a compromise in the ductility which leads to the high malleability, and we can machine these things, and the magnetic property and the wear properties also increases. So where we use normally these malleable cast iron, so we use it in a connecting rods, transmission gears, okay, pipe fittings, valves, so marine works. Okay, so where we can have a, or where the application demands these property, so there we can have these malleable cast irons. And the next type is a spheroidal graphite iron. Okay, so again, this is one more heat treated part of the cast iron. Okay, so it is characterized by the presence of a free carbon in the shape of a spheroids or a nodules. So you can see the microstructure. So where we can see, okay, nodules of these irons are dispersed in a ferrite matrix. So also known as nodular iron or a ductile iron. Okay, so where the brittleness or hardness is compromised with the ductility. So spheroidal shaped graphite are obtained by adding a small percentage of a manganese or a cerium to the alloy in the molten state. Okay, so where the shape of these irregular shapes or maybe the flakes, graphite flakes are converted into the nodules. Okay, so the composition will be 3 to 4% of a carbon and 1.6 to 2.8% of silicon. So rest will be the iron. Okay, the microstructure will be dark graphite nodules surrounded by alpha ferrite matrix. Okay, so as the shape changes to the circular one, nearly circular one, so the ductility of those materials will increase. Okay, so the property highly ductile, so very good machinability, so high corrosion resistance. Okay, so which makes them to apply in a flywheels. Okay, so furnace doors and a lathe checks. Okay, so where it can withstand a high temperature. Okay, and lathe checks where it can withstand the wear resistance or maybe the corrosion resistance. So there we apply these spheroid graphite iron, that is the SG iron. So SG iron finds a lot many application. Okay, so and it what you call minimizes whatever the disadvantages what we had with a normal iron. Okay, so these are the four types of cast iron. So where we have seen gray cast iron, white cast iron, so malleable iron, and SG iron. Okay, so by modifying the free carbon which is present in the form of flakes, okay, or a needle-like structure into a spheroids or a nodules or maybe irregular shape like a rosettes. Okay, so we can change the brittleness or maybe the hardness of a material or a iron to the ductility and malleable iron. So now once we see these cast iron, so we'll move on to the next category. So where we'll see the few property related with the steels. So already we have seen a little bit the properties with respect to the steels in the end of the model number 2. So we'll see it here. So the steels are the one which which are having a carbon percentage less than 2.1. Okay, so in that one again we classify them into hypoeutectoid steels and the hypereutectoid steels. Okay, so hypoeutectoid steels, those are having a less than 0.8% of carbon. Hypereutectoid steel, the one which are having a more than 0.8% of the carbon. Okay, so you can see here with that one, so we have given the application of the normal, that is a plain carbon steel and a high carbon steel. So high carbon steel we go with the surgical equipment, so where we require very hard and wear resistance the surface, and a scientific equipment again where we require the corrosion resistant. Okay, and a hard surface. Okay, so which will be resistance to the corrosion. Okay, so and here we go with the high quality silverware. Okay, so where we are going to have a little bit lesser carbon percentage, so which will be having a alpha ferrite. And when we see here hypo and hypereutectoid steels, so in the hypoeutectoid steels we are going to have a alpha ferrite, so in the perlitic condition, and in the hypereutectoid steels we are going to have a cementite in the perlitic mixture. Okay, so even the microstructure which we are going to have it in both the things are totally different. And due to the presence of cementite, these materials will be a little bit harder and stronger. And due to the presence of alpha ferrite, these materials are having a ductile and very soft in nature. So what are the things we are normally we use? Okay, so are the properties which demands the application. So we'll see one by one. So now when it comes to the low carbon steel, so which are having up to a 0.25% of carbon, then the microstructure predominantly alpha ferrite and a small quantities of a perlite. So as we already told in the using the iron carbon diagram, and the property relatively soft and a weak, outstanding ductility and a toughness, so good machinability and a weldability. So advantages, less expensive to produce. Okay, so due to we can produce with the slow cooling of the austenite to the room temperature, so there is no what you call requirement of the heat treatment and all. So easily we can form these type of steels. So application, automobile body components. Okay, bridges, buildings, so where it requires a weldability. Okay, and a very good toughness. So we can see normally we use it for a bodybuilding parts. And as we move on with that one, so next category will be medium carbon steels. Medium carbon steel, normally the carbon ranges from 0.25 to the 0.55. The microstructure will be alpha ferrite and perlite itself. Okay, the properties will be stronger than low carbon steels due to the increase in the carbon percentage. Okay, and the advantages, best range of adding alloying elements. So here we can add the alloying elements to change the properties of the medium carbon steel. Okay, so medium carbon steel find a variety of application in a steel category. Okay, so application, railway wheels, okay, the tracks, gears, crankshaft. Okay, so where it requires a little bit hard, okay, and a tough one, so there we go with the medium carbon steels. Okay, so you can see it in the microstructure also. Okay, so we are going to have a alpha ferrite, so which is white in color, and so the perlite, which is finger like structure, so which is we can see it in the dark color. Okay, so when you zoom that one, so you can say like a finger like structure, so which leads to the application in the categories where it requires a little bit hard and tough material. And a high carbon steel, so here the carbon percentage will be more than 0.55 till to the 2.1, and the microstructure will be Fe3C and a perlite. Okay, so till there, till the 0.8 we had a ferrite and a perlite, and here we are going to have a Fe3C, that is a cementite, which is dispersed in the perlite matrix. Okay, and the properties hardest and strongest and least ductile due to, okay, the absence of these ferrite. Okay, due to the presence of Fe3C, they are a bit hard and strong. Okay, so when compared to the previous category, that is a medium and a low. And when you see the advantages, so best range to make a tool steels. Okay, so these are a bit harder, and normally the components which are made up of these low and medium carbon steel can be machined using the tools made up of high carbon steels. So applications we can say like as we said, the knives, razors, axe blades, okay, high strength wires, where the surface is bit harder compared to the components which normally we use for many application. Okay, so in order to machine those things, so we go with a high carbon steels. Okay, so even we can add the alloying elements to this one to increase the properties in that one. Okay, so next, once we see these, okay, a plain, medium, and a high carbon, so those are the properties which we get depending upon the carbon percentage. But even when you in the application requires a particular property, so then we are going to add alloy. Say, for example, so if the component requires a high resistance to the corrosion environment, then we can add a chromium. Okay, chromium into this one, and we can have that like that. So in order to increase further properties in the steel, so we can add different alloying elements. Okay, so normally what are the properties normally we get to strengthen, okay, to the of the ferritic condition, because it's a very ductile, so improve strength and elastic ratio. Okay, and improve wear and corrosion resistance, to improve mechanical property, increase hardenability, improve toughness, and a grind size control. So in order to increase the various property, so we can increase the add a few alloying elements where it will increase or enhance these property. So when you categorize the different alloying elements which we had to the steel to get a different property, so we can categorize elements into four categories. Okay, so elements forming a carbide, which are hard and strong; elements forming a graphite carbon, which are smooth and self lubricating; and the elements which tends to stabilize austenite, which are very ductile and non-magnetic in nature. So elements which tends to stabilize ferrite, which are soft, weak, okay, and uh, which are magnetic in nature. Okay, so even if you want to have a high temperature, so there we can have these things. So already we have seen the elements which tends to stabilize austenite and stabilize ferrite. So which what are the importance of that one? Okay, so increasing the ejectoid or decreasing the ejectoid temperature, so will increase the area to which the austenite or maybe the ferrite which is present, and they will offer the properties which are present in those ranges. Okay, so here when it comes to the elements which are forming a carbides like a chromium, tungsten, vanadium, molybdenum, manganese. So these things are added wherever it requires to have a very hard material. Okay, so like as we discussed in nitriding. Okay, so nitriding or maybe carburizing. So if the elements, if we have these alloying elements in the steel, so when we add a nitride or maybe carbides into that one, okay, so these they will form a very carbide particle which will be having a high melting point, which leads to the high strength, okay. And when it comes to the elements forming a graphitized carbon, so when we add these elements into this one, there will be a free carbon which will be present in the different shapes, okay, different shapes, which will lead to the a smoothness, that is a very good self lubricating surface by forming a free carbon in the different shapes, okay. So when you see the same thing, okay, here in the sentence form, okay, so the elements which we had to form a carbides, so will increase the hardness and wear resistance. Elements which tend to form a graphite, elements oppose the formation of a carbide and stabilize carbon to occur in the free form as a graphite. And elements which stabilize to austenite are added to A3 temperature and rises the peritectic point, okay, increasing the range in which austenite is stable. And the elements which we add to have a ferrite, the elements are more stable in the form of a alpha iron at a high temperature. Okay, so by one can understand, like, see, by adding these elements particularly, okay, to the alloy, so one can expect a different property. Okay, so if the application demands such a property where we can have a magnetic properties at a high temperature, so then one can go with the ferritic stabilizer. Okay, or one want to have a very ductile material, bit tougher, okay, even at a room temperature, then they can go with the austenitic, that is stabilizing austenite at a room temperature. Okay, so like that. So or one who wants to have a surface hardening, okay, to form a very hard surface and all, then they can go with the elements which can form a carbides. So then easily we can harden the surface, for various applications. So then, when we add these alloying elements, so we can classify these alloy steels into structural steels, tool and die steels, magnetic alloys, and stainless and heat resistant steels. So what are these things? So structural steels are basically a low carbon steel. So where we are going to have a carbon percentage 0.15 to zero point 0.3. Okay, alloying elements which we normally add to this category will be silicon, copper, phosphorus, chromium, and manganese. So combination of this copper and phosphorus will increases, okay, resistance to the atmospheric corrosion. Okay, so features will be good yield strength, enough ductility to avoid a brittle fracture. So easily we can weld these things, and a low cost. Okay, low cost due to so getting these ferrite, okay, at a room temperature by cooling the austenite in a normal condition is a very easiest. And tool and die steels, so these things are need a very high harder and very good strength, because these are used to machine other elements. Okay, so at the time what we can have, water hardening tool steels, okay, shock resistant tool steels, hot worked tool steels, and high speed tool steels. You can see here the carbon percentage little bit higher compared to the plain carbon steels, so zero point 0.7 to 1.3. Okay, so used in making a drills, okay, the drill bits, files, chisels, hammers. You can see here all the category, okay, whatever the category we are seeing here, all are tools. Okay, normally we use it using maybe by hand tools or maybe machine tools, okay, like a tungsten, silicon, molybdenum, manganese used in making tools, okay, punches, chisels, or to improve the hardness. Okay, so where we get a hot worker tools, and high speed steels, okay, which are good shock resistant. Okay, so normally we can think in a spring steels and all. So moving on, we have one more category of stainless steel. Those are called as PH steels. Okay, so PH stands for precipitation hardening stainless steels. So these steels are having a superior corrosion resistance compared to the chromium steels also, and they are having a very good strength compared to other category of the steels. Now here, so the tensile strength and the yield strength compared to the normal steels, so it will be around 850 in a normal steels, and it will jump to 1700 MPa in the PH steels. Okay, so even when you compare the yield strength of a 520 MPa of a normal stainless steel, so here this will be 1500, almost three times than the normal steels. Okay, so how exactly we are going to get these precipitation hardening steels is by heat treating these things. Okay, heat treating the steels at a lowest temperature of 480 degrees Celsius means these temperature are chosen in such a way that the danger of cracking and distortion and oxidation of the machine parts will be eliminated or minimized. Okay, so that is the idea why we are choosing the 480 degrees Celsius. Okay, so the precipitation hardening steels are widely used in a structural material in a chemical plants and power plants. So due to optimum, so as I said, the strength of these things and the corrosion resistance of these PH steels are much more higher compared to normal stainless steel. So because of that one, so they find a variety or a huge application in these areas where structural and chemical plants are going to use. Okay, so how exactly these things like a precipitation already we have seen solid solution strengthening in a model number one. Okay, so where we have seen when it comes to heat treating at a lower temperature, there will be a small precipitates which are going to come out of the already super saturated solid solution, and these uh, nucleated extra like a secondary nucleated particles are going to act as an obstacle to the moment of the dislocation, so thereby giving a higher strength. So normally here, so these stainless steel, okay, are added with the niobium and a copper, so which are going to increase the mechanical property into 2 to 3 folds. 2 to 3 folds. So means after solid solutioning, so heat treatment, the yield strength of these things, as I said, it will increases to further 1200. Okay, which we are going to heat treat at a 482 degrees Celsius. And when we talk about a corrosion resistance, okay, of these things are generally higher than the normal stainless steel. Okay, that is a normal martensitic steels, and they are like a quite not that much equal to the chromium nickel type 304 steels. Okay, and when we look into the categories, okay, in these things, so there will be two types of pH steels. One is a martensitic pH steels and one is a austenitic martensitic pH steels. Okay, so in a martensitic pH steels, the austenite will transfer to the martensite at a lower temperature. So typically, as we said, it will be considered at a lower temperature in order to eliminate the distortion, and these are strengthened aging between 480 to 620 degrees Celsius. So aging is keeping at that temperature for a longer time. So where we will get these precipitations coming out of the present phases. Okay, so when it comes to the austenitic and martensitic pH steels are essentially fully austenitic after solid solution heat treatment and require a secondary heat cycle, so which will be around 750 degrees Celsius for 2 hours to get these precipitations coming out of the supersaturated solid solution which is present in that one. Okay, so in overall things, so these whenever we require a high or very good mechanical property, okay, so with respect to the different class of the steels and a very good corrosion resistance where we apply these things in a where we can handle the pressure as well as the chemical attacks, that is in the nuclear power plants and the chemical plants. So one can use these type of tools, steels, so in the practical applications. So that's a classification of a steels. What exactly we can see it in the ferrous and its alloys. Okay, so thank you. So each category so will requires the properties which we can use it in a practical condition. So magnetic alloys, so which are magnetic in nature. So in order to improve the magnetic property, we can add a nickel and a cobalt. Okay, soft and a hard magnetic particle we can say. So it gives a small area under a BH curve, the curve which shows the the behavior and for a magnetic fluxes. So high permeability used in a transformer course. So example is a permalloy where 45% is a nickel and a superalloy 79% is a nickel. And when it comes to the hard magnetic alloys, okay, materials, we are going to have a larger area under BH curve and used for making magnetic poles for alternators, motors. So example, I carbon steel, where we say Alnis, okay, aluminium, nickel, cobalt, and iron. Okay, so depending upon the application, okay, so one can choose so what property they want, and they can alter the properties by adding a different alloys. And the stainless steel are the category, so where we are going to get a very high corrosion resistance. Okay, so excellent corrosion resistance, heat resistance, and aesthetic. Due to the presence of chromium, they are going to have a very good heat resistance also. Okay, they can withstand a high temperature. So these are classified predominantly with their alloying elements like a ferritic stainless steel, where we are going to have a chromium 11 to 27, austenitic 16 to 26, and a martensitic where we are going to get 11.5 to 18%. Okay, so this is a one very important stainless steel category. So where we are going to get a very hard, okay, very good eye strength, and the one which can withstand a high temperature. Okay, that is a what I call like called as a very good class of a stainless steel. Okay, so 88%, that is the 18% of a chromium, and normally 2 to 1 to 2.5% of a nickel, and 0.15 to 1.2% of a carbon. Okay, so we'll get a n number of a classification or a types of a steel. So where each addition of each alloying element will change the properties. Okay, so one has to wisely choose what type of alloying elements they need. Okay, to change the different property. For example, if it is a reverse engineering, we can say I need a material or a steel which is applicable in a marine application. Okay, so what are the properties which we need for a marine application? So corrosion resistance. So the first thing they will come it as a chromium. Okay, they want a very hard. Okay, so which can withstand high temperature. Again, it's a chromium. Okay, so like that. So if they want or if they know where exactly it is applicable, so one can easily choose the alloy which gives the property to them. Okay, so like that they can see. So like this we can see n number of a classification in the steels, and this is a glimpse. Okay, so where we can see so a bird's light fracture in order to see the properties of the steels. Okay, thank you.